This video is brought to you by Aeroparts.com. In this video, I'm going to be replacing the lower control arm bushings in a 2008 Lexus IS350. Now for this particular job, we're going to need to jack the car up. You can't drive it up on ramps because we need to remove the tension from the control arms. Now we're going to be starting off with the driver's side or left side control arm bushing. Alright, here's the left side control arm bushing. We have a 22mm nut, the 22mm long bolt, and a 17mm bolt. And there's a nut on the other side of that bolt, so you're going to remove the nut on the other side as well. And we also have two 14mm bolts as well for the bracket, and you'll see that in just a moment once this camera is fully adjusted. And there those bolts go there, and the torque specs to those as well. Now, as for my previous video, you've probably noticed that this is a California car. There's no rust on it. If you have a lot of rust on your vehicle, you're going to need either a torch or a lot of penetrating oil like PB Blaster, which is one of my favorite brands, to get those bolts off. That's what I highly recommend, especially if you have a lot of rust, because I struggled with these bolts without rust. And another thing, of course, that I recommend is if you have a lot of rust, to spray the penetrating oil at least 24 hours prior to starting the work on the vehicle to give that oil a chance to really soften up a lot of the rust around the bolt and to soak the area and make the bolt a whole lot easier to remove. I'm going to remove this smaller splash shield. There's only four 10mm bolts that hold it on. It's really easy to get off. It's partially in the way of the 17mm bolts. So let's get that out of the way so we have a little bit better access and a little bit more room to remove the 17mm bolts on our lower control arm bushings. Alright, now I have all the bolts removed and the bracket removed, and you can see where the control arm bushing is loose, but I do need to pry the control arm to get the control arm bushing out. As you can see here, I have a pry bar. It doesn't really matter what you use as long as it works, but a pry bar is the best thing. So if you don't have one of these, go down to any local hardware store and pick one up. You can definitely put it to good use. And that's it. You just torque everything down and you are done. Now we're going to be going to the right hand side now. And as you can see, everything is going to be the same. It's just mirrored. I just recorded this for a different angle because maybe it might help somebody to view it from a different angle, so just enjoy this. Another thing that I forgot to mention when we were showing the left hand side is the center 22mm nut has a washer behind it. I know it's kind of obvious, but just make sure you don't forget that. I'm going to slow it down and show you when I put it back together, but it's one of those little things that people tend to forget. And there's that washer that comes out that I was talking about. We have all the bolts out, and we're going to remove it the same exact way we did on the left hand side. Just pry that control arm down, and we're going to remove that bushing. Now, of course, I made it look a whole lot easier because I cut some of the extra footage out. It did take me a little bit longer to pry the control arm down and slide the bushing out, but wanted to keep the uninteresting parts of the video out because this is pretty straightforward here. And off comes the bushing. Now we're just going to put our new control arm bushing on. It's the same exact process as the left hand side, just a different angle. Now a lot of people talk about upgrading these. This is not an upgrade. These are just a regular run-of-the-mill replacements just to bring the car back to the way it drove when it was new. Now a lot of people use control arm bushings from the Lexus RCF, the two-door performance version, which are a little bit stiffer. You get a little bit more stability from those. A lot of people also use polyurethane as well. It's a very easy upgrade or repair. So whichever way you choose to go, can't really go wrong. I mean, if you don't like it, you can always just remove them, put a different one on. Not really much of an issue besides rust. Anybody in the rust belt would know. Just you want to become prepared for that. I usually would recommend an impact or a very big breaker bar, but an impact really is just way better for cars that have a lot of rust underneath them. And that's it. Don't forget the washer when you put it back together, some of the small things, and you're done. If this video helped you out, consider liking and subscribing, and check out our channel for other similar videos. And don't forget, if you're looking for quality aftermarket auto parts or brands like Denso, Bosch, and the likes, check out aeroparts.com.